concerning forest conservation. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, while shared, the responsibility for climate adaptation and mitigation is not and should not be evenly distributed. Expecting countries like Sierra Leone to bear the brunt of a crisis that scarcely contributed to without robust support from the primary emitters, the industrial giants, is fundamentally unjust. Our stance is unequivocal. We are here to collaborate, not to capitulate. We seek cooperation, not charity. The actions of significant polluters must pivot from mere declarations and vague commitments to actionable, technology-driven reparations. It is a demand grounded in the technical feasibility of climate justice, not just its moral imperative. A unified front against the existential crisis is not just desired, it is imperative. As I close, I implore all of us present, the hourglass of action is dwindling, and the sands of time wait for none. Let's come together, not just in spirit, but in action, but in actionable solidarity. For in unity we find just strength, but not just strength, but salvation. Thank you.
Another round of applause for President Bayo. Thank you very much. Now let me take this opportunity to request my sister again, Her Excellency Saleh Work Zewde, the President of Ethiopia. Madam President, you have the floor.
Your Excellency, President William Ruto, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very important summit. Congratulations to the African Union for organizing it and for Kenya for being our gracious host as it is in the tradition of this country. Africa has tried its best to make its voice heard. This is not the first time that we meet to do so. In fact, to speak with one voice and to alert partners of the disastrous consequences. Ethiopia has been on the forefront of this fight. A lot has been done to coordinate our efforts in order to have a strong common position. Common position is indeed always needed in our African Union Forum. Today it's about climate, but the continent's major issues such as peace, stability, progress requires indeed our common position. It has been increasingly difficult to explain to our people, and particularly to our youth, this contradiction. Resource-rich continent and yet poor people. To explain the injustice that has been mentioned many times here today. That is why our summit cannot and should never be a talk show, but a place where concrete actions and actionable actions are being taken. Let me also say that without sufficient research publications. It would be difficult for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change to get accurate representation of Africa's special needs and circumstances that would build evidence-based for advancing the key ask of the continent. So it is imperative that as Africa, we prioritize investments in our research capacity to develop scientific publications to inform and guide global efforts to combat climate change. We must emphasize on investing in African research institutions to produce regionally relevant science that can inform the different working groups under the IPCC. This endeavor requires a strong commitment from both African scientists and the international community, accompanied by the financial capacity necessary to deliver this research. Ethiopia has witnessed in the past decades, including the last consecutive years, persistent drought, flooding, locust invasion, where millions were severely affected. We've been carrying out different practical policy and action interventions as a step to contribute to emission removal and building adaptation capacity. Besides, we've also put in place national adaptation plan to build and boost resilience and adaptation capacity. Building climate resilient green economy is one of the pillars of our 10-year national development plan. As part of our strategic consideration, we have launched the long-term low emission and climate resilient development strategy that has been submitted to the UNFCCC with the aspiration to achieve net zero emission and building climate resilient development by 2050. The Ethiopian Green Legacy Initiative that has been mentioned again today, that was launched in 2019, has succeeded in planting 25 billion seedlings on the degraded landscapes by mobilizing volunteers throughout the nation. The initiative helped for the development of more than 120 nurseries and created more than 180,000 jobs throughout the country. More importantly, the initiative is intended to inculcate the green behavior in each of our citizens. The greening initiative has been scaled up into fruit-bearing perennial trees, thereby directly linking the initiative with our food system transformation strategy. In the agriculture sector, Ethiopia has achieved notable progress in enhancing its wheat production, effectively transforming a deficit of 15 million metric tons in 2019-2020 into a surplus of 65 million quintals in 2022-23. I think this achievement has enabled Ethiopia to meet not only its domestic need, and in fact commence with exports. This gives me a good opportunity to thank the African Development Bank, and most particularly its president, my young brother, for the support that was given to us. The plan is to cultivate 2 million hectares during the dry season alone in 2023. The success of wheat production is critical for the country's efforts to enhance food security and achieve food sovereignty. In terms of renewable energy production, Ethiopia is also investing on green energy projects such as hydroelectric, wind, solar, and geothermal energy sectors, as well as promoting modern rural cooking technologies. We have successfully run the hydro energy producing projects, including the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, with domestic resources, which will significantly make difference in the country's status in terms of social, environmental, and economic needs. Ethiopia is striving to finance climate actions proactively and persistently as means systematically addressing the economic challenges of the country. Accordingly, the government has invested over $82 million from 2011 to 2019, mobilized from domestic, bilateral, multilateral sources, as well as from international climate finance institutions on climate change mitigation and adaptation projects and programs in agriculture, energy, transport, industry, forest, urban development, and health sectors. Despite this investment, Ethiopia still needs to attract and mobilize a significant finance to support its climate-compatible development agenda. We still count on our partners to fulfill their commitments to developing countries and committing themselves for the new challenge of setting new quantified finance goals in the coming years. We also strongly urge multilateral financial institutions to undergo a serious reform that fits for purpose for the needs and circumstances of developing countries, rather than fueling the historical debt accumulated on the shoulders of developing countries and mainly Africa. Our future depends on our decision now. Urgent action is needed in limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius to avoid worst impact. 8 years after its signature, ensuring the implementation of Paris Agreement is not an option again. As I conclude, I would like to assure you Ethiopia's unwavering commitment to work with our fellow Africans and other global partners to achieve our priorities and the long-term objective of making the planet comfortable for present and future generations. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, my dear sister. Another round of applause for President Zewde. Let me now take this opportunity to request Brahim Ghali, the President of Sahrawi Arab Republic. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Welcome to Kenya for the Africa Climate Summit from the 4th to the 6th September 2023. See you all
Head of
in Nairobi.
the AC, Your Excellencies, heads of states, heads of governments, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure at the outset to extend my wholehearted thanks to the Republic of Kenya, the government of Kenya, and the people of Kenya, and President William Ruto for this gracious invitation to attend this meeting. Would like to thank you for the excellent hospitality, and would like to thank you for all sorts of efforts and generosity for the sake of the success of this great event, which is the Climate Summit in Africa. And our Saharan Republic also is facing the climate change like so many other countries in the world. We're facing all these challenges related to climate change. Meanwhile, we have another struggle to put an end to occupation in my countries due to the occupation because of the conflict with Morocco. And those challenges are intertwined This situation led to the displacement of more than 200,000 of our citizens to some territories that are suffering from climate problems, and temperature in the refugees camps are immeasurable. In our occupied territories, the different practices of occupation, which is outside the control of the international law, without any kind of control. It leads to the aggravation against climate change, like, for instance, the problems with fishery, and this depletes our water and agricultural resources for the sake of exports. And this kind of military occupation is sort of a wall and divides our country into two parts. And this deprives the occupied territories from water. And this is a very dangerous environmental deterioration, and this increases drought in our region. It also led to so many deeply rooted changes in the surface of the land, which became more exposed to wind erosion and also water stagnation. There are also mined areas along this wall became inhabitable, and also it has a very limited economic production. Those challenges, huge challenges, required practical measures on our side to deal with this situation. And in this context, we developed our NDC, and we identified through it the urgent measures for adaptation with climate change and mitigation of its limits. And we did that through strengthening development, which is based on renewables instead of fossil energy. And we supported NDC by having an NAP or NAP through the common ministerial initiatives that included several ministries. In the Sahrawi refugees camps, we developed agricultural systems to reduce the use of water. We also developed modern means with lower costs for housing. And the purpose of that is to face the increasing risks of floods, in addition to the spread out of using solar energy in small units. We also have experienced some electricity projects using solar energy, wind energy, and we're using it also in medical facilities in remote and isolated areas. There we use solar energy. Mr. President, although we have a desert nature, but we do have so many resources to provide to the blue economy in Africa. We have long coasts, and it's very good for fisheries. And our coast, which goes as far as 1,110 kilometers, the land there is known for its resources, and of course it's adopted by Ramsar Convention. Those areas are Wadi Saqiya, Bujdur, Dakhla Bay, and Sabkha Imlili. And although all those resources are exposed to climate change, because of the excessive depletion of those resources under occupation, but our country emphasizes that it's committed to execute and implement cautious plans in this area, and this is in harmony with the African initiatives and its goals to protect the African coasts in Africa. In addition to our work or setting out administrative plans for the important environmental areas, and according to the climate change requirements, we're going to work with other countries and have partnerships and with those countries and African organizations to build our national capacities and to exchange experience in relation to the blue economy. The delay of the termination of the occupation by the United Nations, which is the last in Africa, that doesn't mean that we are fully participation in the international global efforts to face climate change and its detrimental impacts. It is illogical that we're deprived of getting the required and allocated financing to face climate change, and we're also deprived of the technical assistance through the climate change mechanism under the United Nations and other organizations. We cannot be deprived from our rights and duty to take part with Africa and the world in this kind of efforts against climate change. And also, we have been coexisting for years and years with those dire and difficult climate circumstances like other countries. We should be represented in the new FCCC and also in the COP. And also we should sign also the Paris agreement and take part in the negotiations, and to also adopt our NDC regularly to the UNFCCC. Our voice is and will be an African voice, and it's going to support the African voice and stance. Sustainable development and the management of blue economy in Africa is strongly related to the way we use to respond to climate change. And we are ready to contribute with our brothers and sisters in Africa and the whole world to achieve the best results and outcomes. I wish you all the best in this summit, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Gali, for that statement. Now it's my humble duty to request His Excellency Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of Burundi, to make his statement. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Mheshimiwa Ruto, na hongera sana kwa maandalizi mazuri ya mkutano huyu. D'abord,
I want to thank God for having given us this very beautiful continent and many opportunities for development. Excellency William Samuel Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, our host, Excellencies, heads of state and government present, representatives of international and regional organizations, all protocols observed. At the outset, may I thank President Samuel Ruto, the government and people of Kenya for the warm welcome accorded to us. I also congratulate the government of Kenya and the African Union on the excellent organization of this summit, which is being held at the appropriate time. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, climate change is one of the greatest collective threats to mankind. In Burundi, the impact of climate change, mainly through drought and torrential rains, violent winds, floods, and landslides are the major factors of displacement of people. To this, we have to add the rising of the Lake Tanganyika and the growing land degradation, which push families to fight about the remaining fertile land. According to the findings, the annual loss in Burundi is estimated at $100 million. In these losses, 72% because of flood, 5% because of torrential rain, and 40% of violent winds. Thus, these weather vagaries, in fact, lead to $70 million of loss, and it impacts on the well-being of the peoples. Their livelihoods provoke the destruction of human habitat as well as infrastructures, the proliferation of and the spread of diseases and loss in human life. Over the past 20 years, the 1001 hills of Burundi are exposed to the impact of climate change. Burundi was used to having rainfall of 9 months, but today drought has even grown beyond 4 months, with an unusual season and rhythm of seasons that affect agricultural productivity as well as animal husbandry. Burundi has increased the number of initiatives in order to face this phenomenon. Burundi is in line with all the conventions that relate to climate change. In this regard, Burundi has adopted an environment code in 2021, and one of the policies for environmental orientations taking into account climate change. This program is accompanied by the mobilization of farmers and by putting, that is, the planting of trees in fertile arable lands in order to retain the rain water. Burundi prepared in 2021 its nationally determined contribution operational plans for adaptation plans also adopted, and according to Article 4, Paragraph 9 of Article 4 of the Paris Declaration. At the practical level, Burundi is mobilizing regularly youth on vacation in preparing the nurseries for agroforestry and forestry seedlings, and to plant them during the period of reforestation, and also to have a program that is Burundi since 2018 wants to rehabilitate the degraded forest lands. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Burundi has the ambition by 2040 wants to develop its objectives of development and the protection of environment and the enhancement of resilience to climate change. According to these perspectives, there are many projects that are envisaged in order to consider a climate resilient program. The establishment of agropoles, hydroelectric centers using photovoltaic cells, and the removal and the processing of waste, and through technological innovation that are adapted to the agricultural and situations where you'll have fuel, wood, and other natural gas and biogas which were going to be used. As you know, Africa is bearing the burden of the impact of climate change, although it contributes less than 4% of global warming and emissions. Therefore, there is an urgent appeal to the developed countries to honor their commitments in Paris, made in Paris, and to work in favor of the developing countries in order to mitigate the climate change and also ensure the transition towards a green climate. To conclude, we reiterate our commitment to the Paris Declaration and also the Plan of Action of 2022 to 2032 of Africa as regards climate change and also resilient development. And I thank you for your kind attention.
Welcome to Kenya for the Africa Climate Summit.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
From the 4th to the 6th September 2023. See you all in Nairobi.
The Vice President of Angola, my dear sister, to come and make her statement. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excellencia William Samuel.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. William Samuel Ruto, Your Excellency, Mr. Azali Assoumani, Chair of the African Union, Your Excellency, Mr. Moussa Faki, the Chair of the African Union Commission, Your Excellencies, First Ladies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. Allow me, Your Excellencies, to present to you, first of all, the regard of His Excellency, Mr. João Lourenço, the President of the Republic of Angola, whom I have the honor of representing in this August summit, attended by member states with the aim of contributing to finding durable solutions to address global challenges related to the climate change on our continent. We would like to take advantage of this opportunity to applaud the government of Kenya for the warm welcome I received, as well as the warm welcome to the Angolan delegation. We would like to applaud the African Union for this important initiative. We would also like to applaud His Excellency William Ruto, the President of Kenya, who is a coordinator of the Committee of African Heads of State and Government for Climate Change, for incentivizing member states to contribute for the process of green transformation of the continent and for the development of the continent's human and natural resources. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, about half a century ago, the environment came to the center of the development of human development. Just like other regions, Africa has been affected by the global shocks, including the global financial crisis, the increasingly growing impact of climate change, and of extreme weather events such as floods and droughts, which amount to a threat to the African economies, which has had a negative impact on the implementation of the different national programs, and which has been preventing us from achieving our sustainable development goals. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, the President of the Republic of Angola, João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, continues to prioritize issues related to climate change through the National Program for Sustainable Development 2022 to 2027, which has defined as a priority food security, family agriculture, local development, and adaptation to climate change, the education, health, for greater development of human capital, the creation of inclusive employment, as well as modernization and expansion of national infrastructures, both port and road infrastructures, the development of industrial centers to support the diversification of our economy and sustainable growth. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa is a continent rich in opportunities where women and youth are some of the greatest producers of food supplies. Therefore, we must fund initiatives and projects that involve women and youth. We need to finance green employment for the youth in order to increase and strengthen the adaptation and the resilience of our communities and promote sustainable development. Angola is fully committed with the implementation of the UN Framework for Climate Change. For that reason, we have been implementing policies and action plans such as the National Strategy for Climate Change 2022-2035. This strategy aims to address the challenges launched by the Paris Agreement and to assure the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as establish the vision of the African policy for the Angolan policy for 2035. Out of its own initiative, the Republic of Angola is developing a diversified energy program, and today it incentivizes energy transition for clean and renewable energies through the implementation of two projects, which is the project of the photovoltaic panel, which will be producing 235 megawatts, which will help reduce the impact of the greenhouse gas emission to the tune of 935,000 tons a year. We are also building 5 photovoltaic parks in 5 provinces in Angola. When it comes to adaptation to climate change, we have been implementing mitigation activities to help mitigate the impact of the drought in Angola. The country has invested more than $130 million for the construction of the Kicc channel, an infrastructure that will bring water to the communities affected by the drought, as well as to support agricultural activities, in this way building the resilience of our rural communities. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we acknowledge that the road is long. With regards to technological solutions and innovative solutions for climate challenges, the responsible, sustainable production and consumption. On that end, we're working with the African Group, implementing initiatives that will allow us to honor international commitments, especially when it comes to increasing and ensuring that at least 70% of our energy comes from renewable sources by 2035. Ladies and gentlemen, the damage and the losses Africa is suffering as a result of climate change are high. They have been contributing for social instability. They have been contributing to mass displacement and have been contributing to the existence of conflicts. Angola, therefore, calls for a fairer and more equitable global partnership. Angola believes that the investment in climate projects in Africa will not only benefit African nations, but will contribute for global climate stability. We must act fast. And to conclude, I would like to thank everyone who helped organize the summit. And I would like to reiterate the commitment of Angola towards equality, resilience, and towards everything related to the progress of our beloved Africa. I would like to reiterate our trust in the African Union and in the international community, so that together we can face challenges associated with climate change. Together we can overcome the obstacles and build a better future for communities, for Africa, and for the world. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice President. Another round of applause for Angola. Thank you very much. Let me now take this opportunity with all humility to ask President Ismail Omar Guelleh, the President of Djibouti, to make his statement. Your Excellency.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mr. President, President Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, may I thank the President of the Republic of Kenya, William Ruto, and the brotherly people of Kenya for the warm welcome accorded to us since our arrival in this beautiful city of Nairobi. It is a real pleasure for me to take the floor at this forum, which is in line with our strategic thought and dialogue and exchange of views for the sustainable development of our continent through the potential which blue economy affords us. The Republic of Djibouti subscribes to the Moroni Declaration and the strategy of coordination for a mechanism of the coastal countries which alone
mètre carré de territoire océanique.
1,000 kilometers. A country is partly desert country and affected by climate change, and this has been imposed also on us. That is what the tertiary economy occupies 87%, while 3% only is for other components. In fact, we have a very important part played in our economy by the port and the sea. In fact, seawater has enabled us to resolve the problem of access to drinking water, and Djibouti has realized its first regime of desalination. That is to say that the development of blue economy, is an imperative need for Djibouti, and it is in this spirit that we have worked out a national strategy for blue economy in 2023, and the national vision is the guiding principle for the action of the government. Its partners and the civil society in working in the maritime economy. In fact, we have worked out a 5-year strategy as well as a plan for implementation of a blue economy, and both are aligned to the strategy and the plan for blue economy and the strategy of IGAD for blue economy and inclusive sustainable economy that can contribute significantly to the transformation of the Horn of Africa. The other sectors identified, that is, in addition to the port and maritime activities, are fishery and aquaculture, and also the maritime security and safety. We have renewable energy and telecommunications through the submarine and the sea cables. Mr. President, the oceans transcend the states and they connect all of them. And we should harness this potential in order to create wealth. This is the essential of what it means to develop a blue economy, that is to establish partnerships that will enable us to make use and exploit our oceans, and also a paradigm for action leading to sustainable development. That is why the strategy of blue economy should depend on 3 principles: enhancement of economic activities and the maritime activities, the safeguard of natural resources and ecosystem services, and the establishment and the creation of sustainable jobs and growth. We have to ensure that oceans create opportunities for our peoples. More than 80% of the people of Djibouti live on the coast. That is why we think that inclusiveness, ownership, and the empowerment of the coastal people and communities are essential for the implementation of blue economy. Before we can think of other world supply chains, we need to guarantee the local capacity, legitimize, regulate, and establish opportunities. Mr. President, the awareness of the possibilities of the oceans by our societies, and also is associated to sensitization about the various threats and also the threat to maritime and climate change, because this can unleash a dynamics for a better system of protection and sustainable use of marine resources. The preservation and protection of our oceans will guarantee the sustainability of our planet. And this preservation should be accompanied by action, that is, to fight against inequalities and the harmful practices that impede and affect the governance of oceans. Illegal fishing, unlimited commercial and industrial fishing, the dumping in the toxic waste in our oceans are major risks to our planet. This conference should, in fact, be the point of departure for the trajectory of development of our oceans and seas. We are aware of the African potential as regards blue economy, but also our vulnerability. That is, to unleash the potential of blue economy will regenerate in Africa and beyond, and will demand the mobilization of adequate financial resources, because the capacities of our states to take advantage of blue economy remains inadequate. In spite of many commitments made by the international community as regards adaptation to climate change and increase and enhance resilience, our achievements in fact remain below what is expected and what is demanded. That is why Africa continues to urge our partners to develop and honor their commitments, because the development of blue economy is in line with the spirit of sustainability and resilience that is recommended by Agenda 2030 of the United Nations, and is a breath of oxygen for our countries and for our deserts. I thank you.
Welcome to Kenya for the Africa Climate Summit from the 4th to the 6th September 2023. See you all in Nairobi.
Of Namibia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Excellency President William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellencies, Head of States and Government, Ministers, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to extend warm greetings from the Republic of Namibia, specifically from Hage Gottfried Geingob, President of the Republic of Namibia, to you, President William Ruto, for your excellent leadership in the fight against climate change and for hosting this very important and timely summit on climate change. Further extend my gratitude to you and to the people of Kenya for the excellent way this summit has been organized and the warm hospitality extended to my delegation since our arrival in this beautiful city of Nairobi. As Your Excellency have said, I'm finally happy to have returned home to East Africa. Today, I wish to shed light on the effect and impact of climate change on Namibia and her people. Namibia's geographical location in southwest corner of Africa, with its vast desert landscape and arid climate, make it particularly vulnerable to the impact of climate change. Rising temperatures, erratic rainfall patterns, and prolonged droughts are becoming more frequent and tense, wreaking havoc on the country's economy, on our environments, and of course, affecting our people. Agriculture, the cornerstone of Namibia's economy, is significantly affected. Prolonged droughts and unpredictable rain patterns lead to the reduced crop yields, livestock losses, and increased vulnerability to food insecurity. As a result, farmers struggle to provide for their families and to contribute to the nation's food production. The impact on rural community is thus severe, exacerbating poverty and inequality. Moreover, climate change exacerbates the water scarcity challenges facing our country. With limited fresh water resources and a growing population, the demand for water is increasingly high. However, as temperature rises and rainfall becomes erratic, rivers and water bodies dry up and groundwater reserves deplete. This scarcity not only affects drinking water availability, but will also impact on agriculture, industrial activities, and hydropower generation. The water crisis strains communities, hinders economic development, and threatens social and communal stabilities. Excellencies, these challenges are not unique only to Namibia, as the whole continent experience similar, if not worse, consequences of climate change. We need to be clear in our message to the international community as it relates to what some refer to as climate injustices or climate justice. The global response to the effect of climate change in Africa should be characterized by agency, collaboration, and support. Africa, as a continent, is particularly vulnerable to the impact of climate change, despite contributing minimally to global greenhouse gas emissions. Developed nations must fulfill their commitment to provide financial and technical assistance to African countries. Adequate funding is crucial to support adaptation and mitigation efforts, improving structural resilience, and promote sustainable development. Technology transfer and capacity building initiatives can empower African nations to implement climate-friendly solutions and maximize their potential for clean energy generation and sustainable agriculture. As Africans, we need a stronger voice, unity, and wield more international influence to bring around the necessary change on the continent for the betterment of our people if we want to realize, and I quote, the Africa we want, in line with Agenda 2063. By working together, we can build a more resilient Africa, mitigate the impact of climate change, and ensure a sustainable future for the continent and all its people. I'm therefore positive that through the Nairobi Declaration, we send a clear message to the international community, and especially to our partners present here at this conference, that the time to act is now. Merci beaucoup. Obligation. Obrigado. Thank you all. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. Now it's my opportunity to request the Vice President of Colombia, my sister, to come and make her remarks. Your Excellency, Madam Vice President. She is the first woman of color to be Vice President of Colombia. Welcome.
Buenas tardes.
I greet the President of the Republic of Kenya, William Ruto. I greet the excellent President of Comoros, Azali Assoumani, His Excellency Oussa Faki, the President of the African Union Commission, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, all the presidents and leaders, ministers, the media, and all those present here. In first place, I wish to thank the President Ruto for having invited Colombia to participate in this great summit on climate here in this African continent. I come sent by the President Gustavo Petro, who was invited personally by the President of Kenya, and I'd like to thank him for blessing the central discussion that we have today, as that is a call to all
That are important and strategic.
Planetary challenge that is putting into risk the life in the planet. As an African descendant woman, I'm very proud to be here in the mother continent. From here, my ancestors came. They were slaves when they left, but today I return as a free woman vice president. And that means that we have done, we have chosen freedom, justice, and dignity as people. It's an honor for me to be here to form part of this very important discussion. And it is the challenge that we have to, and which our nations face with the climate change. As you have said, Africa is the voice of the planet, but it's also the place where humanity came from. And today, knowing that Africa is giving directions on how to save the big house, the planet. However, It is necessary for this voice to be heard, to be extended to the global south. Today here, Latin America is present, the Caribbeans are present, because we are suffering the same challenges as you are. My country this year, as a government, we have had to face a crisis, a very strong crisis on account of the effects of climate change, floods, which have put in danger the lives of the most vulnerable. But now we have a drought which is starting and which is going to put into danger human life and the life of the fragile ecosystems which form part of this great lung of the world, which is the Amazon and the Pacific region. As we know here, there is another part of this lung of the world, which is the Congo Basin, the region of the Congo, a very strategic region for guaranteeing equilibrium. In this sense, President Gustavo Petro has made several proposals to the world in the United Nations, and today these propositions are placed before you. Whatever has been said today here about how to assume the polycrisis, the different crises that we're experiencing, the crisis of hunger, the crisis of migration, crisis of health, and the pandemic. This is a sign of this planetary crisis and of the many crises that derive from the impact on the planet of the climate change. And in this sense, therefore, the countries of middle income or the vulnerable countries are the ones that suffer the greatest consequences, as has been said here several times by the speakers. We are not the people responsible for the emissions, but we suffer the greatest consequences of them. And here the problem is a problem of finances. How do we finance the actions that we are carrying out in our countries and in our regions? The real problem is a financial problem. It's not a lack of political will to do something. The real problem is that we don't have the resources, sufficient resources to look after, to challenge these planetary challenges, to face them. And therefore, we support the proposal of the President of a new reform of the structure of the financial system. We cannot attend this crisis with the same rules and norms of the international financial system, which certainly has a colonial view, or a colonialist view, where the rich people sustain themselves in the economy by exploiting the poorer ones. And this colonialist vision will not allow us to challenge the situation that we are experiencing. Therefore, we propose the exchange of debt for climate action. This exchange of debt obviously cannot be in the traditional way as has been done before, because there would not be any just situation. We would not have the sufficient conditions to do properly these exchanges. These exchanges obviously imply special conditions, and one of these proposals is that we should reach agreements, multilateral agreements, to work on this transformation and on the financial system. And in addition, we should together build within this agreement, this multilateral agreement, an urgent action plan. The planet doesn't have much time. We do not have much time to continue speaking. We have to go into action. And this happens because of political will. The political will of the countries of the North, the G20, who continue emitting gases, but it is not sufficient for us to act in the South. If the global North does not take up the challenge of limiting its emission of the gases, as we were saying, as the General Secretary of the United Nations said a few minutes ago. In this sense, therefore, we propose that we should do the same, that what was done in the case of the pandemic. The International Monetary Fund should issue special bonds so that these can contribute to create a global fund to allow the middle-income and vulnerable countries to have the economic conditions to be able to face these challenges. Without this, it would not be possible to advance. Without this commitment to reform the financial system, our countries will continue being drowned in debt, and worse, without getting real solutions to our populations that are dying. As a woman, I celebrate that in this space, in this summit, we are considering the role of women in the policy of life, in this the policy of using our instinct, our maternal instinct, to save our mother, the earth, the bigger uterus. Thank you for this invitation, and I repeat, Colombia expresses its commitment in climate change and its commitment to strengthen South-South relations with Africa and with the Caribbean, which will allow us to give concrete, specific responses and to this planetary challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, mi hermana.
Statement. And by the way, Francia has a Kenyan name. She's called Nyawira. And when she came to Kenya, we traced her origin to a place called Meru. So thank you very much, Nyawira. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. A round of applause for Nyawira, Francia. Thank you very much. Now, let me take this opportunity to request my brother, the Prime Minister from DRC, to make his comments briefly, because we've really overshot the runway. Your Excellency, please.
Excellency William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya and host of this summit. Excellencies, heads of state and government, Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Madame von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, Mr. Moussa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to take the floor on this day on behalf of His Excellency Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Chilombo, President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, on the occasion of this African Climate Summit in this magnificent and beautiful Kenya International Conference Center. Like those who took the floor before me, I would like to thank the Republic of Kenya, the sister republic, for the warm welcome accorded to my delegation, and I would like to extend this gratitude on behalf of the President of the DRC. Organized under the thing that is to develop positive solutions for climate in favor of Africa and the world. This summit affords my country the opportunity to meet the expectations as regards the problem of climate, and precepts are based on three fundamental principles, that is, the green economy, biodiversity, and renewable energy. As we can not overemphasize that the DRC is a kind of solution country which imposes on the world because of its potential and innumerable assets, which is an undeniable contribution that is there for the conservation of nature. A favorable ecosystem, our country, in fact, has huge forest resources, and 155.5 million hectares, which is more than 10% of the forest of the Congo Basin, an important reserve and a well of more than 30 gigaton of carbon, and also its potential of the solar energy, which represents 37.7% of Africa and the world. The Democratic Republic of the Congo can, through its hydro electric power, can provide and supply Africa with this energy, and also its young population, its labor force, and which is a great potential. And as President Ruto has said earlier on, the African potential is known. Here, it is a question of transforming this potential and harness this potential in responding to the issues of climate. We, last year, had the crisis, the fact of the deregulation of the wells and the dry season, which, in fact, had a lean corn season in East Africa, in Central Africa, as well as Southern Africa. And this has destabilized our economies. This has made us more aware of the response that we should give to this climate problem. For me, and the response of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, there are three indispensable ingredients. One is the will, solidarity, and determination. The will is through the honoring of commitments that we make, particularly the countries that pollute, and as regards the carbon tax, as agreed at the COP15, will on financing, innovative financing, and financing green economy, as agreed at the last summit in Paris. And then the investments on energy, the development of value chains here in Africa, and this with a response for jobs for our youth, and the will to enable us, as it has been said here, that is access to financing on fair and equitable conditions, and the reduction of debt of the vulnerable economies through compensation, because it has also been proposed, and I think it has to be recalled. And the second ingredient is solidarity. Solidarity as regards projects of common interest. I'm here thinking of and referring to energy, green energy, the needs in energy and the peoples who live in the forest, and also thinking of the Inga Dam and integrating a project. And we are open to proposals so that we need the efforts of each and every one. I can give another example, the agreement between the DRC and Zambia on the development of value chains, solidarity on issues of common interest, as is the case like the Congo Basin, the Amazon, and the Mekong Basin, as called by President Denis Sassou Nguesso. And then solidarity as regards peace and security in order to guarantee the protection of forests, biodiversity, which has been destroyed by various criminal activities. Then determination, which is the third ingredient, in the search for innovative solutions to climate, as it is the case here in Kenya, and then the determination for a better world to be bequeathed to our children, and also the new climate economy, and access to conservation and the rehabilitation and restoration of our forests for the production of, and then regenerative agriculture, and also to ensure food security. It is for this reason that we are in favor of the establishment of a fund for climate change. We also are making an advocacy, and we want to do it on the margins of the General Assembly, which will be organized on 19th September, on a carbon market that will be profitable for Africa, and that will be on the margins of that summit. So all these issues will show solidarity, and this should apply not only to Africa but also beyond. I sincerely want to thank President Ruto and all the participants for this opportunity that is afforded to us through this summit, which will contribute undoubtedly to all the meetings on climate. I want to thank you all.
Thank you very much, my brother Sama, for your comments. And another round of applause for my brother Sama. Let me ask that we now prepare the clip from my sister Motley. Just hold it as I give the floor very briefly, maybe 2-3 minutes, to the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Salah Jama from Somalia, if he is there. Okay, if he's not there, can we take the clip from my sister, Mia Motley?